Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you in today's persecution report titled Bangladesh Election Under Scrutiny, Power, Legitimacy, and Global Stakes. Today's discussion focuses on a question that goes beyond a single election and that reaches core into Bangladesh's political future, its legitimacy, and its democratic credibility. Now, election is presented to us as an ultimate evidence of democracy, but historically in Bangladesh and globally, we have witnessed to have fruitful democracy. We need political pluralism, we need meaningful participation, and also the neutrality of institution and public consent. And in absence of this element, that can make an election not a democratic process, but merely a procedural excuse. So, Bangladesh election, February 2026, arises all these questions that I've been talking about since the beginning. So, in today's discussion, we will talk about if that election lacking. Surely it is, but if that election is lacking of political pluralism, if this election is taking us somewhere where the Bangladesh can be in a right pathway of democracy, or it is going to take us somewhere dark where there will be severe consequence. So I am very honored to introduce our panel today. So we have Barrister Tapas K. Baul. He is a former prosecutor of ICTBD and senior associate of South Asian Democratic Forum. We also have Dr. Raihan Jamil. He is from Center for Bangladesh Genocide Research. And of course, we have our very own Anwar Shadat Jihan, who is a columnist and an aerospace engineer by profession. So viewers, we will talk about election 2026. The discussion will be uncomfortable. We will find out how not only the election is being scrutinized locally, but also the election and referendum, how we are seeing it in local and global perspective. So Jihan, I am going to you first. Would you mind going through about the election and the referendum taking place? What is happening as a pre-election situation in Bangladesh? And how the state is treating the political parties, if it is treating all of the political parties equally. Jihan, to you.
Thank you, Ms. Meher, for connecting today. At a time of extreme political uncertainty and instability, Bangladesh is fast approaching towards an election, or shall we even call it an election? For an election to be considered credible, it must follow certain criteria. For example, for an election to be considered credible, there must be genuine political pluralism, meaning all political parties must be allowed to participate freely and fairly. Voters belonging to all sorts of beliefs and supporter structures must be allowed to participate freely and without being exposed to fear. There must be a neutral caretaker authority overseeing the election. And most importantly, the election must be free from internal manipulation and external pressure. However, as you will see in the following slides, right after the Yunus government took over, from launching a blatant attack on political pluralism to colliding with the foreign perpetrators, Mr. Yunus is doing it all to stage a drama. It all started with banning the activities of the largest political party of Bangladesh, Bangladesh Awami League. That commands solid 40% supporter base, along with 20% swing votes, meaning 60% of the voters. Then this government removed Awami League from the ballot, and thus attacking directly the political pluralism as we know it. Now, when there is no political pluralism, the election no longer remains an election. it becomes a scam, it becomes a selection. When an authority or somebody wants to attack political pluralism, when someone clearly shows a fascist tendency, first thing what she does is start disenfranchising the voters. And that's what Mr. Yunus did. During the last 18 months, tens of thousands of Awami League activists have been imprisoned on fabricated false charges. And when they were not arrested or imprisoned, they faced violent mobs. Nowadays, mobs can form anywhere, anytime, and the life of a Awami League supporter seems to carry very, very little value in today's Bangladesh. We have seen the tragic fate of our student political leader Saddam's wife and child, who took their own lives. What does that mean, my dear friends? Mr. Yunus is not only disenfranchising the voters, he is creating an environment where the voters will take their own lives. Yunus does not have to take it. He just created the environment where the voters will take their own lives. And in such environment, it cannot be an election. Then we are seeing some shocking trends. What is most stunning to us is that the Western countries, the so-called promoter of democracies, are seemingly showing high interest in the extremist factions of Bangladesh. We have all recently seen the Washington Post report, and we have all heard the leaked audio call of a United States diplomat openly romanticizing the idea of friendship with the extremist parties. What we and the other political analysts believe is that these Western countries are very effectively creating and staging the stage for these extremist parties to come to power. And thus it is a predetermined outcome that we are seeing. And all these unusual engagement between the Western countries and the extremist forces are showing us that there will be a result that is already predetermined. Thus, this cannot be an election. This is fraud. And in this fraud, Mr. Yunus is not acting alone. The Western countries seems to be in bed with him, in bed with the extremist forces. All this shows us, depicts to us a clear erosion of the rule of law. And there remains no legitimacy for this election. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the Awami League chief, very openly challenged Mr. Yunus to compete in an election with her. Now it will be interesting for us to see what Mr. Yunus says to that. I'm sure that he will say no, because he never had any support from Bangladesh, because he never did anything for Bangladesh. To conclude, I would like to echo Mr. Sojib Wajid Choi and say that when genuine political pluralism is absent, when voters of a specific political party are targeted in such heinous manner, this no longer is an election. It is a stage drama. Back to you, Ms. Meher.
Thank you, Jihan. You took us a path that should be very uncomfortable for the viewers and some political stakeholder when it is very evident that how the largest political party of Bangladesh is being excluded from the election and how the voters, some very ordinary people, they're facing a situation now where a voter, a very young women and a young child have to lose their valuable lives because of the consequence they've been facing. Taposh Kantibol, my first question to you. Now, because you are a barrister, you know about laws, both local and international. Can you please tell us the election? Can any election, either the election in Bangladesh or anywhere, can the election be considered a legitimate one without the presence of political pluralism? How the international standard or the international bodies, how do they see it? So to you, Mr. Baul.
Thank you and good evening. This is the most moot question. To answer this question, we look to the world's most authoritative democratic standards, like the standards set by United Nations, the Interparliamentary Union, and the OSCE, all of which agree on one point. Without political pluralism, there can be no genuine expression of the people's will. Let's begin with the foundation of modern human rights law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 21, declares, quote unquote, the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections. Now, the question is whether we are having a genuine election in Bangladesh at the moment. So, the single word, genuine, carries the weight of pluralism, right? And we know right at this moment in Bangladesh, the biggest political party, Bangladesh Awami League, who has the history with the independence of Bangladesh. The party of father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, is banned from the from the next national election. So if the voters cannot choose between competing parties, philosophies, and candidates, what will of the people is truly being expressed. The UDHR is expanded through Article 25 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which guarantees every citizen the right to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors. So, again, look into the free expression of the will of the elections. Can the voters express their free expression without the presence of Bangladesh Awami League? Is there freedom of expression right now in Bangladesh? The UN Human Rights Committee, in its authoritative
Mr.
general,
Ball, can I
yes,
just interrupt you with something as well? Because you mentioned two words, periodic and genuine. So those two elements should be present there. What do you think? The election is periodic, I understand, but is it genuine? By the
as I
law, does
said,
it
it,
stand that one?
this is not genuine at all. And also, this is not periodic because we know that just in the January of 2024, we had the national election.
Very
One
good.
election should have been, next election should have been conducted in 2029, but we are seeing an election in 2026. That also without the presence of Bangladesh only. That's why I'm saying that the general comment of 25 of the UN makes clear that what that free expression of will requires, right? Without free expression of will, it can be neither genuine nor periodic. So it says that the full enjoyment of Article 25 of ICCPR requires free communication of information and ideas, freedom to engage in political activity, to criticize and oppose, to campaign for election. Which one of these is present? Is free communication present right now in Bangladesh? Is there any exchange of information and ideas going on between the political parties they love, they like, they want to be in power, and the voters? There is no flow of information and ideas. There is no freedom to engage in political activity. From the slideshows, we have just seen that thousands of Chhatru League activists, Jubo League activists, and Awami League activists are in the prison and without any case, all fictitious cases, fraudulent cases, right? So, in this situation, can there be freedom to engage in political activity? Can you criticize and oppose the present Yunus regime or their allies like Jamati Islami and other political parties? It's not possible. Even I know there are women MP candidates from different other political parties. They cannot campaign in their areas right now because of fear of Jamati Islami, NCP, and other mob-centric political parties. So,
Also, Taposh, sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you again.
please, please.
We can see the women participation as candidate is very low in number as well, isn't it? If I can correctly remember the number, I'm sure you will know that as well. I think it's something like 109 which is like only 4.2% of the total candidacy. So the women participation is very low as well.
Very
Sorry.
low.
Yeah, go on,
Very low.
please.
You are absolutely right. So why this is low? Because this is women participation is not possible under a one party system, or when they are suppressed by the right wing political parties. So without pluralism, without alternative voices, the legal right to vote becomes a hollow ritual. So election legitimacy also flows from three other sources, right? If you just give me 1 minute, for example, legality,
Of course.
the presence of laws permitting participation. So there is no presence of law which permits participation. Then the word participation, broad, inclusive, it has to be broad, it has to be inclusive, accessible voter involvement has to be there. But nothing sort of that is guaranteed under the regime of Yunus. Then there has to be genuine consent, right? The genuine, uncoerced expression of political choice. Can we, the vote they will place, can it be genuine? Can it be uncoerced expression of political choice? It cannot, because the government itself is advocating for right wing political parties. The government itself is advocating for the yes vote for the referendum. The UN stresses that Article 25 rights must be effective, not merely theoretical. Citizens must have a real opportunity to engage, compete, and decide. So, legitimacy is not about turnout numbers or well printed ballots. It is about whether people actually had a choice. Finally, I will just mention the OSCE principles, the political pluralism as a defining standard. So, in the Copenhagen document of 1990, they widely regarded as one of the strongest election related commitments adopted by governments. It plainly states that pluralistic democracy and the rule of law are essential. States welcome the commitment to the ideals of democracy and political pluralism. So, if we evaluate the situation of Bangladesh right now, do we see a pluralistic democracy? No. Is there rule of law present in Bangladesh? No. So, just if you evaluate the situation of minorities in Bangladesh, you will understand that there is no rule of law. If you analyze the situation of journalists in Bangladesh, you will understand there is no rule of law in Bangladesh. So, uh, the situation is not in favor of a free, fair, and inclusive election. And the election that we are seeing is a staged drama. It does not fulfill or even qualify to fulfill the international standards.
Thank you very much, Taposh, for taking us in the pathway of law. And also, just to add on, Mr. Baul said, it is not only depriving the voters to have the political party of their choice, it is also depriving the candidate who, by the international standard, have right to seek office with their political party of their choice. So their rights are being deprived as well. Now, I will go to Dr. Raihan Jamil. Mr. Baul mentioned about a referendum, and it is quite interesting to see a referendum is taking place in the same day with the national election. Now, my question to you is, what strategic function does the referendum serve within the current political architecture? Is it there to make sure the democracy, rule of law, or people's choice, people's participation, to make sure they're ensured, or it is something to consolidate power? What do you think, Dr. Raihan Jamil?
Thank you, Ms. Meher, for giving me the floor. I'd like to first welcome all of our audiences in Bangladesh and abroad. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon to all of you. Let us start with honesty. This referendum is not about people's choice. Let us not make any mistake about it. It is about Mr. Yunus's asking for approval after the takeover, not before it. So there's a huge problem right at the beginning. Here is a simple everyday example. If someone breaks into your house, replaces all of your family photos, break down your walls, rearranges the furniture, and then politely asks, "Do you approve of my renovation?" that question is not democratic. It is insulting. That is exactly what this referendum is. Mr. Yunus did not come through elections. We have to keep that in mind. His loudest supporters are the war criminals Jamaate Islami, Islami Chhatra Shibir, and the conveniently rebranded National Citizens Party or NCP. These are forces that have failed in 1971. They have also failed in all the ballot boxes in our history. And they have suddenly rediscovered democracy after the July terrorism cleared the competition for them. So, strategically, this referendum does three things. First, it launders illegitimacy. It launders illegitimacy. It turns an unelected arrangement into a photo op with democracy. So basically, it's nothing but a photo op with democracy. There's nothing democratic about it. Second, it blocks accountability. Once you say the people voted yes, every question about repression, extortion, exclusion, or the mob rule is dismissed as anti democratic, right? You have voted for yes, so everything else you say, you are being anti democratic. Third and finally, this referendum cuts Bangladesh off from our history, our 1971, replacing it with July opportunism and seminar politics. This, Ms. Meher, is not reform. This is a political dry cleaning. Overall, I must say, this referendum is not a vote, it is a receipt for stolen power.
Thank you, Dr. Raihan Jamil. Mr. Jihan, I'm going to go to you in a minute, but just to let the viewers know, the referendum taking place in the same day, 12th of February 2026, the referendum will be based on something called July Sanad. It is 84 proposal, and those proposals are based on reforming the constitution and reforming the parliament that we have in Bangladesh, and the voters will have 4 questions in front of them, and the voters have to say yes or no for all 4. So there is no way to say, I want this thing to be done, but I do not want the other proposal that you are proposing. And this referendum is coming without much information. I'm sure Jihan will have much more to say about it. The referendum, the proposal, that 84 proposal that's been proposed, there is no information based on it. There is no way, nobody is telling the voter about the 2-tier parliament that it is processing, and it is also changing, reforming the constitution in a way that will erase the history of 1971, the liberation war of Bangladesh, and all this rich culture, something like Bengali nationalism and others. So that is referendum in a nutshell. So Jihan, would you mind taking us through about some other aspect of referendum? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meher, again. So not only Mr. Yunus is working towards holding a sham election, he is working in the same direction. At the same time, he wants to hold a sham fake referendum. Now, this highly controversial referendum has some serious implications. This referendum itself is unconstitutional. Why it is unconstitutional? Because this interim government, I believe last October or November, they have issued this gadget for referendum signed by the president. Now, the Article 93 of Bangladesh Constitution states that the president cannot promulgate any ordinance that is contrary to the Constitution. This gadget contains provisions that are directly contrary to our Bangladeshi Constitution. The July Charter that Ms. Meher, you said, contains 84 provisions. These provisions are contrary to the Constitution. So, according to Article 93 of Bangladesh's Constitution, this referendum is unconstitutional because it talks about a bicameral parliament system, right? Upper parliament consisted of 100 persons and a lower house. Now, if we look at other countries around the world, we will see a similar example in Belgium. Belgium went to a bicameral system. It started for thinking about a bicameral system in 1970. And then for 20 years, it observed, it reviewed the bicameral process. And then finally in 1993, it went to a bicameral system. But in Bangladesh, we are going there right away. Then, Ms. Meher, you said that there will be only 4 points on which the voters will vote. So all these provisions are bundled together in 4 yes-no questions. That means the voters are not being allowed to be informed, to make informed decisions. And when voters don't know what they're voting on, I don't know how meaningful this referendum is. The most shocking aspect of this referendum is the direct participation of the interim government in the advertisement of this referendum. How credible this referendum remains, like how much credibility it holds after that. The interim government effectively itself advertising to vote yes on these questions. We have seen Ali Riyaj, the so-called constitutional expert. We have seen Saeed Rizwana. We have seen Mr. Asif Nazrul. All government...
And Muhammad Yunus himself as well.
Yes, and Muhammad Yunus himself, all effectively advertising to the citizens so that they vote yes on these questions. Now, this is clear conflict of interest, Ms. Meher, because you will also see that Bangladesh Bank is asking the other bankers to do promotion for this referendum. Now, when the referendum itself is unconstitutional and other political parties, Awami League, Chashad, all seeing it as unacceptable, I don't know how democratic it is. Because we have also seen external players, namely this specific US diplomat talking about the referendum. He said that Mr. Yunus was telling BMP and Jamaat to shut up about the referendum. That means there is an active collusion going on between external forces and internal forces to destroy the constitution of Bangladesh. This referendum is not a referendum, Ms. Meher. This is sedition. And Mr. Yunus will go to prison one day for actively destroying our motherland, Bangladesh. Back to you, Ms. Meher.
Thank you, Jihan. So we are clear from what Dr. Raihan Jamil said and what Anwar Shadat said. The referendum is not only unconstitutional, the way the referendum is taking place, the process is very shady for many different reasons. One is the voters are not having the choice of what they want to say about the referendum. They are not there. They're not allowed to have informed decisions because there's no information out there. But also the government is taking a clear side for yes vote. Now, the referendum took place in many other countries. In Britain as well, there was a referendum in Brexit where the government, following the Parda law, they were banned to participate, to do any kind of campaign for any one side of vote for some really long period of time. If we think about other countries, Ireland has a very strong law about referendum and how government can campaign. And other countries like Spain and Italy, they have very strong law as well. And even the neighboring country, India, has a very strong law as well. So we are in Bangladesh, we are seeing the current interim government led by Muhammad Yunus. Him and his government is completely working on conflict of interest, clearly pursuing the voters to vote for yes, which gone against any sort of national and international law. So this is referendum to you. Now, Mr. Baul, I'm coming back to you. I want to ask you some very specific figures. Yes, we want to know about other international figures as well, but I want to ask you about the EU and US. how they have responded to the election in Bangladesh and the referendum, and also their response to the election in Bangladesh. Does it align with their own democratic benchmark, or are they giving us a new idea of democracy? To you,
First of
Mr.
all,
Bol.
I will start with European Union team. You know that on 11th of January they landed in Bangladesh and they did a big, press conference. And this is for the first time after 2008. More than 200 election observers will be observing the election all over Bangladesh. That is the idea. However, the main controversy is that during that press conference, their the head of that election observation team, he said that this election is inclusive because if it ensures the participation of all class of people, all gender, uh, and then minorities. If all of them participate, then it will be inclusive. But if we look into the mandate of European Union, I just in my previous answer, I was reading through the Copenhagen Declaration of 1990, which specifically defines that what is actually inclusive, right? Inclusive not only means the participation of people from all clan, all class, and every sex and religion. It also means the participation of all political parties, because when the voters go to the election to put their vote, if they don't find in the ballot that particular political party which reflects his own ideology, who he believes that the political party can perform according to his wishes, if that political party is absent by an executive order of the government, then definitely that election is not inclusive. So what I'm going to say that this European election observer team is actually following their protocol of that we call deep state, right? Why I'm saying that? Just right now, the talk of the town is a audio clip of an US diplomat. And if we listen to that audio clip, what do we see? We see,
Sorry, sorry, Taposh, can
yes,
before you go to that very interesting audio clip, can I just also remind the viewers as well, the EU delegation team that Mr. Baul is talking about, all the, not all, but many of the EU state person in previous election, they complained about political pluralism and how political pluralism was not present in those elections, but they changed their own definition of democracy when it came to the 2026 election. It is a quite double standard, isn't it, Mr. Bol?
absolutely. And why I'm answering that, why this double standard? The double standard is, or hypocritic reply, because of that audio clip. Because that audio clip answers that right now USA wants Jamaat Islami to come into power. Right now, USA consider Jamaat Islami is their best friend. They think that they can control that political party. They can shape Bangladesh as an Islamic state, and they can transfer Bangladesh as a warmongering country who will constantly disturb the peaceful nature of South Asian nations. Look, another country whose position we need to discuss as well is China, right? So you see that China is also meeting with Jamaat Islami continuously. I remember in 2025, when the Chinese High Commissioner came to attend a meeting of Jamaat Islami, he was given a huge chair, right? A huge chair beside the Jamati Islamic secretary, as if they are ruling Jamati Islami. So Jamati Islami is a political party. To provide a validity to this political party, uh, that kind of definition of inclusiveness is being doctored by the European Union election observers. Now another thing, but the real situation you will see from the behavior of the Indian diplomats, right? Indian diplomats are, they have been ordered that their family must not be there in Bangladesh anymore, and their families have already left. Today, even I read on the newspaper on Prothomalo that even Indian staffs of different private companies, they are also leaving Bangladesh right now ahead of election, considering the situation or the backlash or the discriminatory behavior or the mob attack they might face. So this is the position. Now, to realize all these design and conspiracy, the question you have asked or answered previously by Dr. Raihan is about the referendum. Now, what is referendum in the context of Bangladesh? In the context of Bangladesh, referendum means that you will just provide yes or no to a couple of 5 bullet points. But what is behind these 5 bullet points? This is not spelled out. First of all, whether this referendum is constitutional or not. The question answer is it is not constitutional. We know that through the last amendment, on I think the 13th amendment, it was repealed. There is no question of referendum anymore in the context of Bangladesh politics. People are saying that okay, probably the Supreme Court of Bangladesh will come up with certain judgments which will provide validity to referendum. Then in reply to that, I have to say that, excuse me, that Article 142, when it is removed, and in the present construction of Article 142 of the Constitution of Bangladesh, referendum cannot return through a judgment of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. It has to be returned through a proper debate of all political parties in the national parliament. Otherwise, you cannot just reintroduce it in the constitution when you do not have that mandate. You do not have a parliament. You did not came into the power through the election, right? You don't have the mandate.
Also, Taposh, because the current government is saying the referendum is valid with the presidential order, but I'm not a law person, so you will know better than me. As long as I can remember, the presidential order can only be valid if it's aligned with the constitution. So if they're claiming, yeah.
Not only that, alignment with constitution is the first requirement, because, for example, if tomorrow president orders that I am a woman from tomorrow, okay, will that be valid? It cannot be valid, because not only constitution, you cannot go against the law of the nature, right? So our constitution says categorically that this presidential order, when president can provide that kind of order, and for how long it will continue, and how it has to be validated. So these 3 questions are not answered properly, and we clearly know that the timeline for the validation of a presidential order or ordinance has long passed. You cannot just now say that these are valid any longer. For example, if in the next parliament it is said that all these presidential orders, even those regarding the election, is challenged and found that they are not valid anymore, what will happen to these changes? What will happen to this referendum? So whatever explanation you provide, there is this convention for all the constitutional countries or all the states, that is that past parliament or past government cannot pass a law which will bound the future parliaments. You cannot, because the will of the people, the political will of the people will change time to time, right? They will want to change their demands. They will want to see that what they want to do, but you are not giving them the chance. That's why it is illegal as well. Back to you.
Um, Thank you, Mr. Baul. Before I go to Dr. Raihan Jamil, can I just quickly share something else as well? The EU election observation mission, when they were asked about the referendum, they said the referendum is out of their own constitution, which is fine enough. But later, the press secretary of Muhammad Yunus, Shafiqul Alam, he said one of the member of the EU election observation mission, they actually praised that yes part of the referendum, which clearly goes against the impartiality of this election observation mission, and the EU election observation mission has not responded to it. So the viewers, you can decide what you want to decide. Now, Dr. Raihan Jamil, thank you for waiting and being with us. My question to you is the absence of Awami League in election. How do you want to explain it? Is it a political failure, or is it a structural exclusion of the largest political party of Bangladesh? So to you, Dr. Raihan Jamil.
So, calling this a political failure is not analysis, it is gaslighting with confidence. Political failure means what? You have competed and you have lost. That's part of a democracy. What happened here is like locking the stadium, arresting the opposition team, and declaring your team to be victorious. That's exactly what's happened. The Awami League did not withdraw, right? It was forcibly erased. Leaders were tortured, activists were hunted and killed. Family members were abducted, jailed, raped, and killed. Campaign spaces were attacked and vandalized. And then Jamaat, Shibir, and their July beneficiaries smiled and said, "See, Awami League is not participating." Right? This is like burning someone's house and criticizing them for not hosting guests. As an academic, let me give you another example. If a school bans a student from entering the exam hall, locks the door, or beats him up, and then the school declares the student has failed because he or she did not sit for the exam, everyone would understand the level, the magnitude of fraud that is. So now the question then becomes, why was Awami League excluded? Awami League was excluded because Mr. Yunus, Jamaat, and Shibir, and other war criminal supporters like them, know one thing very well. They can never defeat the Party of Liberation War in a free and fair election. They failed in 1971. At that point, they ran with their tails between their legs. They have always failed when voters had a real choice. People of Bangladesh, Ms. Meher, do not like liars and munafiks like the Jamatis. So these people, the war criminals, the Jamatis, the Shibirs, they rely on exclusion, intimidation, rapes, killings, and administration theatrics and tricks.
And
Removing
fraud. Sorry to interrupt. They also resort to fraud.
definitely, right?
Regarding Jamaat, we have to say just one thing: look into their history. They committed genocide in 1971. They committed crimes against humanity. They allied with the killing force of Pakistan, right? And not only that, look into the history after the independence. We always the time know that they are the one who cuts veins, who threw students from the rooftops, right? So these things, the voters must consider these things.
And also, on a side note, we should remember that the founder of Jamaat-e Islami himself said that he does not want his children to be part of Jamaat-e Islami, right? That's a huge sign right there of what kind of a party they are. So removing the Awami League is not neutral governance; it is historical revenge. Think about it. It's historical revenge on part of this anti-freedom activists of 1971, the collaborators, the Rajakars. It is an attempt to run elections where the Rajakars and war criminals supervise and the liberators are told to stay home. That is not democracy. That is fear dressed up as procedure. So, what is the bottom line here? You could not defeat Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina or the Awami League, so you hid from them. Back to you.
Um, Thank you, Dr. Raihan Jamil. And also, it is a quite shocking way. It's a quite shocking thing because by International Parliamentary Union, their election guideline, it clearly states that if any political party is not allowed to participate in election, there must be a legal process where they can legally appeal against that decision. But we can see for Bangladesh Awami League, it did not happen. There was was no legal procedure was followed when they banned Awami League's political activity. We have seen one fine morning there were some July thugs. They went outside of the office and they demanded the ban of Awami League, and without following any legal procedure, without following any legal appeal from Awami League, they were banned from participating in elections. So it is quite outrageous as well. So I'm going to Mr. Taposh Baul again. I know different international bodies and locally as well. We talk about the pre-election situation. If the pre-election law and order, does it suggest if we are ready for an election to take place or not? So do you think the pre-election situation in Bangladesh, does it have the capacity to hold a legitimate election? What do you think?
Absolutely not. In my first answer, I said that in bullet points that there has to be freedom of expression, there has to be freedom of association, protection for the vulnerable groups like minorities and women and children, and then there has to be a right to choose, right? These are the four criterias, main criterias. So are there, and then other criterias are rule of law and the right to life as well. So whether these criterias are fulfilled or whether Yunus government is capable to fulfill these criterias. First of all, we know that there is no freedom of expression right now in Bangladesh. You cannot just say that, okay, you can talk ill about Dr. Yunus, you can say rubbish about Professor Asif Nazrul, but whether that is qualitative freedom of expression. What is qualitative freedom of expression? That when you can criticize and then there will no action will be taken, but can you criticize and guarantee that mob will not attack your house? Can you guarantee that police will not come to your house and arrest you? You cannot. So the amount of journalists are arrested and are denied bail is unimaginable in the history of Bangladesh. The government has taken some preemptive decisions to arrest these people, including Shahriar Kabir, Chinmoy Prabhu, because they were afraid of these people. Because if they are out and they continue their critical voice, dissenting statements, then people will lose their faith, which eventually people have. But they would have lost their faith back in November 2024, but already people have lost their faith into them, into this current government. Now coming back to freedom of association, there you can, like, do you hear the voice of Bangladesh Jatiyo Party who are contesting in the election? You don't. uh, just today, before joining this talk show, I was watching this. One candidate was showing that how the city corporation is putting yes vote posters in on top of his posters to hide from the people that you are competing. People don't know that you are competing. The government mechanism is introduced in that way right now. So there is, apart from, even if you put Awami League out of the scenario, no other political party has any voice. What about Bangladesh Communist Party? Are they contesting in this election? What about their voice? There is no voice. They know that in fear, out of fear, they do not say anything, but out of fear, they cannot participate
Also, Mr.
in
Ball, if I can
this.
quickly add a little bit to what you are just saying,
Right.
it goes in sync with what you just said. Not only that, we're not seeing our candidates promoting themselves or their parties. What we're saying is everyone is about this gono vote or referendum, as about say yes to it. Otherwise, you are an autocrat, you are a fascist, all of that. It is
Absolutely.
obvious that the agenda is not actually the election itself. The agenda is overwhelmingly about casting yes vote for the referendum. Because, like Ms. Meher was sharing in the initial
Mhm.
foundation of our episode, making this yes vote stick would open up so many avenues for dirty politics, for these war criminals and Mr. Yunus.
Absolutely. And I will just come to the last bit of rule of law. Right now, thousands and hundreds of activists and supporters of Awami League and human rights activists, journalists are in prison. If you go in front of a court asking for bail, you are denied outright. And in the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, the main problem is none of the benches are taking up mention slips so that those bail hearings can be heard. For example, the case of Dr. Abul Barkat, their family and the lawyers are trying for months so that that case can at least be heard by a court, but the courts are not accepting because they are saying that we have orders from high ups, we cannot take these mention slips. Not the court, but the bench officers are saying in that way. And if you are an activist of Awami League, or if you are arrested in a case concerning this July August so-called uprising, then there is no bail for you. That we have seen already. Even if your kids die, if your wife dies, you cannot have bail, you cannot have parole even.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baul. Mr. Jihan, can I just come to you quickly? I'm a bit cautious about the time, but if you have something to show us about how the minorities and other people are being tortured in a pre-election situation in Bangladesh, I'll be very grateful if you can show us something.
Thank you, Ms. Meher, again. One of the tools, one of the tactics that this interim government is using is that they are trying to marginalize the minority communities. Throughout the last 18 months, we have talked about what is unfolding on the minorities, right? But running up to the election, the violences against the minorities, Bangladeshi women, girls, have increased significantly. In this December 2025, 51 attacks on minorities happened just in December. And this is reported numbers. The real number may be very, very much more than that. And 1.5 weeks ago, a Hindu village in Walkhali was torched. Now, Ms. Meher, it is not August 5th, 2024. Now there is no Awami League. Now there is no Awami League, of which the minorities can be the lackeys. Still, they are being targeted. They are being targeted so that because the minority voters are about 14% of the total voters. So this government is not only excluding the Awami League. You know, our minorities don't need to be Awami League. Just because they are minorities, they are removed. Because the goal here is, Ms. Meher, to bring these extremist forces to power through this sham election. And it is clear from the number of candidates of women that we are seeing, only 4.24%. And Jamaat does not believe in women leadership. Jamaat don't believe that our women can be leader. You know, they think it is kufr.
And sorry, Jihan, Jamaat does not have a single women candidate in this election as well, isn't it?
Yeah, because their political ideology, it's congruent with that idea of women leadership, you know. And then finally, we have been seeing the hardcore friction between India and Bangladesh. And recently, India called back all their diplomats' families out of fear for their lives. The economy of Bangladesh is in free fall. There is no law and order. And in this situation, Ms. Meher, no election can happen. First of all, we need to bring back Awami League, the largest political party in the play, in the election. Awami League must be allowed to participate freely, fairly. All Awami League leaders, activists must be freed from prison. All the false fabricated charges must be dropped. And then we can return to normal democracy. Back to you, Ms. Meher.
Thank you, Jihan. Can I go to Dr. Raihan Jamil again? My question to you is, what are the long-term consequences of this kind of fabricated election and that very shady referendum? What could happen in the future? Sorry, we're a bit conscious about time, so I will very politely ask you to concise your answer, please. Thank you.
Of course, I completely understand. Fake elections do not bring stability. They bring slow, quiet decay, right? When people realize that votes do not matter, they disengage. They don't get interested anymore. Here is a simple comparison. Is it echoing? Okay, if a restaurant serves us rotten food but proudly displays a fake health certificate, customers do not feel assured. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the foreign investors in Bangladesh. In the last 18 months or so of this illegal Yunus regime, not a single cent has entered Bangladesh in terms of foreign investment. The most dangerous consequence is cultural. When young people learn the brutal lesson that violence and mobocracy works better than ballots and education, that lesson spreads faster than any manifesto. Can you imagine what the outside world will think of our education system and our academic degrees? How these children go abroad for higher education? Right, so this is not done as by random. As Jamaat grows stronger, this is not a coincidence, this is design. So what can we conclude from this? Fake elections do not end crisis, they train and create the next one. Back to you. You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Uh, Tapas K, I'm coming to you. You have touched upon law very well, local and international. So I have a question to ask you. What do you think? To what extent do Bangladesh institutions such as judiciary, law enforcement, the election administration, are they being independent? And if they're not, how does it affect political accountability? If I can have a short answer from you as well, please. Thank you.
I explained earlier that there is no independent judiciary right at this moment. Everything is going as per the prescription or meticulous design of the Yunus government and its allies like Jamaati Islami, Hizbut Tahrir, Hefazat. So everything is like, if there is any allegation against Jamaat candidates or even the Jamaati politics, those are not being entertained at this moment in in the court. Number one. And number two, as I said, if there is any bail application for the imprisoned Awami League activists and leaders, they are not getting any bails. If you ask for any privilege for the elder leaders and activists or Sikh activists, then the judiciary, the district magistrate, everyone is saying no, they're denying those rights. Right now, there is no application of Nelson Mandela principles in the prisons of Bangladesh. So that's why I'm going to say that Bangladesh judiciary, Bangladesh legal structure has fallen apart. Judges are not independent anymore. Back to you.
Thank you, Tapas K. I'm just going to ask you the last question, Dr. Raihan Jamil. Now, we had a very grim kind of discussion today. Looks like there is no hope, there is no light in the end of the tunnel. But we want to see something better, we want to be hopeful. So what do you think, what realistic pathway exists for restoring political credibility and democracy in Bangladesh? So you have 1 minute, if you can just tell us what we can do as a country.
Okay, I guess there is no shortcut to back to credibility. No referendum can fix what in exclusion broke, like exclusion of the leading political party. No Nobel Prize can replace a ballot. No seminar can substitute 1971. Mr. Yunus must return where greedy and corrupt liars belong, off the throne. His fraud, or any fraud, is not authority. Branding is not legitimacy. What we must also remember as a pathway to our hopeful, positive future is that international community must stop confusing silence with neutrality. In here, this silence means complicity. Bangladesh was born through sacrifice, not shortcuts. It will only survive through law, inclusion, and historical honesty. To wrap up, Ms. Meher, I would say you cannot repair democracy by empowering the enemies. That should be our path to the future.
Thank you, Dr. Raihan Jamil. Beautifully said, as always. Dear viewers, we are coming to the end of this program. So far we are doing episodes based on election and the referendum. We've been talking for some long time now. So from our other episodes and today's episode, it should be clear nationally and internationally what is going to happen on 12th of February in Bangladesh by the name of the election. It is everything but democracy. It is everything but legitimacy. What we are seeing is legalizing a mob, legalizing a genocidal party, and putting them in a government position with a very shiny crown of legitimacy. So my plea to the national and international audience, wherever you are, please do something against it. Raise your voice, write wherever you can, protest that election that can destroy a future Bangladesh, and it can destabilize the political scenario not only for Bangladesh, for South Asia as well, because we know when there is a vacuum of a secular political party like Awami League, the extremist right-wing party like Jamaat-e-Islami, Hizb ut-Tahrir, and other parties will take that place. Now, if the world wants to take this chance, what can I say? I can only request. So everyone, we will come back to you with some other topics. Happy or sad, we will see you next Sunday. Till that day, goodbye everyone. Have a happy life. Thank you.